Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Talking City podcast with Conor McGilligan, your multimedia host, and I'm joined by Simon Bajkowski, your chief Manchester City writer, on a very dull and dingy here in Manchester international break. Si, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Good. How are you?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. I think we need football back, don't we? After a challenging month, it's going to perk us all up.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Been up to anything on this international break?
Took most of it off, to be honest, which was very nice. Did a few boring things, but nice to be off. And it's just nice not to work. How about you?
Yeah, you got a bit of a glow about you. It's that non-working
That
glow.
non-work glow,
Yeah. Hard-hitting topic, Si, to start off with. You've seen the show notes.
Yes.
City seem to have been brought into all of a sudden the conversation. Obviously, Everton this week have been deducted 10 points for breaching FFP rules. City are now, the conversation is revolving around the Manchester club on, well, if this happens to Everton, there's going to be a precedent set with Manchester City as well. It's been chaos, hasn't it, really? And the first event in Premier League history that's led to this.
Yes. There's a lot going on.
That's why you're here.
That's why I'm here. And what I should say is that I don't fully understand the legal side of it. And, there's a City fan on Twitter, Stefan Borson, who is very, very good and knows his stuff. But I think what we've seen since Friday is a lot more people who simply do not understand how the law works and the legal side of everything. And a lot of cries of, well, why haven't we heard what Man City have been punished with? Why haven't Man City been punished? Man City must be punished with the highest possible thing if Everton have been hit with 10 points. And it's just all nonsense. I think there are a few interesting things that you can draw from the Everton case with regard to City. And because the whole thing with City is it's sort of shrouded in secrecy and we don't really know what's going on and what exactly they've been charged with, sort of the detail of it. So everyone's in the dark a bit, and everyone's in the dark about this Premier League panel, and the fact that we've now had a panel with Everton sort of means that everyone's feasting on this, and everyone is like, right, that means that this must translate exactly to that, and it's not, because it, like in a court of law, if I'm being sued for libel and someone else gets done for libel, if I'm being sued in like Manchester Crown Court, I don't know the law, so my court's on. But if I'm being sued in a court for libel in Manchester and someone else gets done in Liverpool, that doesn't mean that I'm automatically getting done. But everyone's saying that, Everton have been done, so City should be done. And the cases are not the same. Everton were talking about, they've breached the Premier League profit and sustainability rules, and they were giving their reasons for why it happened, for things beyond their control. And this independent panel have said, no, we don't accept that. We don't accept your reasoning. Have a 10-point fine, which seems harsh, but might be, a sign that the panel, and we don't know that it will be the same panel necessarily that rule on Man City, but have deemed in this instance the Premier League's version of events to be close to truth than Everton's. Whereas City, it's all in dispute. The Premier League is saying you have lied and been dishonest and not faithfully reported your finances for like the best part of a decade, and City is saying no, that's not the case. So it's going to more come down to, you can't say that it should be expedited or it should go quickly. I think there was something like there were tens of thousands of documents presented for the Everton case, which is enormous, but times that by an unquantifiable amount for going through 10 years of... Yeah. I can tell you now there'll be 115,000 documents submitted, because that is the magic number. But it's interesting and hugely significant for Everton and other clubs. and Everton's statement kind of suggested they will be interested to see how other clubs are looked at. But on the other sense, it's apples and oranges, because you can't just say, oh, well, we got done, so they should get done.
Well, that's what it is at the minute, isn't it? It's like, yeah, we've been done. You need to get done now. And like you just said, it's with the excellent analogy of the court of laws there. It's two very differing cases, or multiple differing cases, but it's been so interesting, hasn't it? You know, when the points have been docked as well. Obviously, Everton have had a good start to the season. It leaves them with a decent chance. Other clubs apparently amassing lawsuits, if we just go a little bit general. Leeds, Burnley, Leicester. It's just fascinating how the whole state of play is, really.
But I mean, you've got sort of, that's important for relegation purposes from Everton, but then say City were to be found guilty of what they've been accused of, and they deny all the charges, but if they were to be found guilty, you would have clubs for, you know, winning the Premier League. You would have for getting in the top four. You would have probably Champions League stuff. There would be all sorts and all manner of clubs. And we saw when, you know, City were accused by UEFA, and that initial punishment came down, like 8 of the top 10 clubs at the time sort of got involved with UEFA to try and make sure that City couldn't, what they saw as getting out of it or delay. And as it happened, City had no interest in delaying. But all the clubs are out for themselves, and the Premier League is out for themselves, and that is one of the big problems, and the huge problem that the Premier League have, because there are questions from the government about, can the Premier League regulate all the clubs? Can the Premier League be an independent regulator? And the answer from government is not really. You know, in the week that the government were due to release this white paper on it, was the week that the Premier League suddenly said, oh no, Man City have been charged, we can do it. And it was, you know, so I don't want to say it was hastily put together, because I don't know, but none of the charges on the website added up. They didn't correlate to the right handbooks at the time. So, you know, why did the Premier League put it out in the week when they were, you know, about to get a bit of flack for not being able to regulate? Who knows, maybe it was a coincidence. But the Premier League are in this fight to show that they can regulate, and all the clubs are in it for themselves, including City, but like as you would be. So there's no kind of, you know, this independent panel is the closest we get to impartiality. But Everton are going to turn around and say, well, that's happened to us. You need to make sure that everyone else gets hit. And part of the reason why this investigation has been taken, while it was taking place into City, all the other clubs around City was like, why is this taking so long? Why can't you do this? You need to punish them. You need to get on with this. And I'm sure that will only ramp up again now that we've had this verdict on Everton. You know, I think we've seen it online with a lot of fans saying, why aren't you doing this with Man City? You need to do this. And, you know, I'm fairly confident that will be, the Premier League will be getting those messages from other clubs. So everyone is out for themselves, and you know, nothing has materially happened with the City case really, but because this Everton one's come out, and because everyone is included in each other, you've kind of got this it's yeah, but it's sort of like, you know, fish in a barrel, but all the fish are shooting each other. It's very, very messy, and will only get messier as more comes out, really.
100%, yeah. Fascinating, and I'm sure things will develop in the coming weeks. On a few positives, Manchester City women beat Manchester United in the backyard, which was nice to see, 3-1. Some really good goals in there, actually. A hilarious moment at the end with a Bunny Shaw rebound, which hit the back of the net, which was hilarious. But the dominance of City at United continues, so.
Yeah, it was an important win for City, really, because they started the season very well. I think they won 2 of the first 3, and the draw was against Chelsea when they ended up being down to 9 men ridiculously, and Chelsea equalised in like the 98th minute or something. So they could consider themselves really unlucky, but then they lost at Arsenal. I think they lost at home to Brighton. So the way things are in the WSL, you know, questions already being asked, if you've lost 2 games already, can you win the league? But to respond to back-to-back defeats and go and beat a United team who will also be wanting to, challenge for the title and make that top three was a really good result. And they went behind early on to a penalty. They had another red card late on. So they didn't have everything their own way, but some very good performances and a very pleasing win for Gareth Taylor and his team.
It was good as well because it weirdly, there's some elements of it which mirrored the City United men's game as well, because it was obviously Man United started relatively strongly, and then City sort of came into the game and started dictating it really, and it was mirrored in the women's game yesterday really.
Yeah, and the light show as well.
Which we're getting used to now.
Well, yeah, it's just like if you're gonna do a light show, like don't do one like that. It was a very strong performance from City, which I think the thing is with this City team is they can be a bit inconsistent, so I wouldn't like to say that sort of all their troubles are behind them now, but it was a big win. I think the first win over United in a while away from home, so and sort of gives them that confidence back that they are still in the race and still have a big say in this season.
More positives. Moving back onto the men's game, Rodri eased fears of injuries as he was included in Spain's starting 11 for their qualifier against Georgia. Massive news. There was a little bit of worry around him, wasn't there, going into his international break amongst City's 900 injuries at the minute. Rodri was certainly one who you wanted to keep a little bit fit leading into the Liverpool game.
Yeah, it was the last Monday we did the podcast, and it was like, yeah, everything's fine, and then just like 1,000 injuries popped up. But obviously, we know from a few months ago how difficult it is to replace Rodri in this team, especially if John Stones is injured as well. So the fact that Rodri was available is a big plus, and also a nice sign that. Because I think the worry, again, like, everyone's out for themselves being a bit of a theme, but, all the clubs worry about when their players go away for international duty because the national managers, it's not in their interest to say, we'll make sure they return to the clubs fully fit and ready for the next set of games. It don't matter how they play for us, but we need to make sure, the national managers want them to play their best for them, and we've seen with sort of, I think Gavi got injured for Spain in a game where Spain had already qualified, and there's a bit of umbrage from sort of the Barcelona end of why was he playing, why did you need to play, and the Spain coach said, our top players never need to rest. It's like, well, sometimes they do, and they tell you that they do. And Rodri, it will be pleasing from a City point of view that he missed a game for Spain rather than sort of tried to play through the pain and risk doing anything worse.
Yeah, not to get onto the Liverpool game fully, we will get into that, but him potentially being out of that game, I mean, it's obvious stuff, but would be massive, wouldn't it? Because you feel a lot of the control is going to be in the midfield.
Yeah. And also, he's one of the best players in the team, so you take him out, and we've seen it's really difficult to replace him. So, yeah, I think if you're putting together a list of players who you wouldn't want to be injured for City, then Rodri would be near the top, if not at it.
That's going to be it for Act 1, everybody. We'll be back for Act 2 in just a sec. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Talking City podcast. We finished talking about fitness and potential injuries. How is City at the moment in terms of injury? Because obviously, the Club World Cup coming up very soon as well. City will need, it's another game, isn't it, as well, to add to the roster. How are they looking at the minute?
A lot worse than they were a week ago. Let's be honest. Can we count them all? So they've had De Bruyne is obviously still out. John Stones is out. Sergio Gomez is out. Nathan Ake was injured. Ake was injured before the Chelsea game. and didn't join up with the Netherlands national team. Kovacic and Ederson didn't join up with their international teams because of injuries from the Chelsea game. Haaland pulled out of the second Norway game. Nunes pulled out of the Portugal camp. Is that it? Are we on 8? And yeah, that is a lot. You know, I think there was a bit of surprise at the sort of injuries to Ederson and Kovacic just because they played on at Stamford Bridge. You know, Kovacic was a sore, but Ederson played the full game. But they will obviously need to be looked at. And Haaland's a funny one as well because it didn't seem too bad. You know, there was a bit of a scare around his fitness, and then, you know, I was speaking to someone in Norway who kind of said, no, it seems to be that they seem sort of a bit more reassured about it. And then a day later, he was pulled out of the game against Scotland. But that seemed to be kind of more precautionary than, you know, a big injury.
Which is nice from what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. So, you know, it remains to be seen whether he'll be fit for the Liverpool game. But I think the hope is that he will, because it wasn't sort of he suffered an injury and then is now out. It was more it's sort of like his fitness is an ongoing battle, isn't it? And it's always a job to keep him fit. And maybe he just sort of went below a line when he needs to be above a line, but he can pretty quickly get back above that line.
Kovacic and Nunes as well. It's going to be on the edge.
Yeah. I think the thing is, it's funny because like they can still put out pretty much a first strength team against Liverpool, say. Apart from Stones and De Bruyne, but they've not had De Bruyne all season. They've not had Stones for most of the season. So they can probably put out a full strength team, but there would just be kind of zero depth. And like you say, with the Club World Cup coming up, they've got a few Champions League games. They've got a tough run of Premier League games. They really need that depth at the minute.
How seriously do you take the Club World Cup this year?
City will take it very seriously. You know, it's a competition they've never played in before because you have to win the Champions League to get into it.
Does it change? Does the importance of it change with the amount of injuries you have? Did you say maybe some players for important Premier League games?
I think you do, but I think the way the schedule has come about, so I think they play on the 22nd, the evening of the 22nd is the final if they get through. And then the next game is Everton away on the evening of the 27th. So there's a lot of travelling to do, but there is time there to rest and recover. You know, it's similar to like the weekend before this international break when they played Tuesday against Leipzig and Sunday against Chelsea. But obviously you're going to get back from the Club World Cup. But you know, I think we might see some changes in the semi-final if you have fit players and a fit squad to go. But I would think it would be a full strength team for the final just to get that trophy in the cabinet.
Talking about all this rotation, will Calvin Phillips potentially get a start? We've got to get him into every podcast.
Come back to Calvin, yeah. Well, yes, he might, but at the same time, if Rodri's fit, then Rodri probably takes that position. Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting with Phillips, Nunes and Kovacic injured. You know, does that push him closer to selection? It probably does, but then you got Rico Lewis as well, who has impressed again and been called up to England. And, you know, we sort of mentioned a while ago that Lewis was outperforming Phillips for City, so it might not be long before he's kind of jumped into the England squad.
There's a lot of transfer interest as well this week. West Ham apparently in the picture for Calvin Phillips as well.
Yeah, and, you know, like I said as soon as Phillips didn't start against Bournemouth and Young Boys, he should have been sort of on the phone straight away to say, yeah, I need a loan in January. And you never can tell what's around the corner. And now Kovacic, Nunes are injured. We don't know how long for, but that might give him sort of the chance for some games. But you still can't see his long-term situation turning round while he stays at the club.
Yeah, it's almost like we need you to patch up the squad now a little bit because it's really, really thin in the midfield. But when that's even just like, a little bit back to full strength, you can do what you want. It's not, as a player, you're not going to feel wanted or not.
No. So, I think the best thing for Phillips will be to get a loan move somewhere else in January and really show what he can do with a regular run of games, and then go away with England and hopefully have a successful tournament there.
Do you think, just to sign off on Phillips, do you think it would be a loan? Do you think that would make more sense instead of a permanent transfer?
Yeah, I think it obviously depends on kind of what the interested clubs wants and what Phillips wants, but I don't get the sense that Phillips is kind of ready to write off his City career, and I don't get the sense that City are fully ready to sort of
say goodbye.
Yeah, money talks, and if there was an offer, they'd certainly think about it. But everyone loves Phillips at City.
Do you love him, Si?
I've nothing against him. Just on a random tangent, like seen some City fans sort of chirping up about Cole Palmer being very chatty all of a sudden, and it's like, well, an industry point. Clubs or national clubs put you up to do media when you've played and you've done well. So, like, I've barely spoken to Calvin Phillips while he's been at City because he's barely played and he's never been sort of the one pushed or, encouraged to come towards us because he's not been the standout man. And Palmer was never really that person at City, for the last 18 months, whereas now he's at Chelsea and playing well. And broadcasters get to pick who they speak to. So if they will want the man of the match, Cole Palmer, or anything like that, and then he goes to England and you do a press conference when you join up with England. So that is why Cole Palmer has been very, very chatty of late, because he's been playing games which he wasn't at City. So I think Phillips is needed just to get that clean break from City in January. But because people want him to do so well, I don't think, they would be wanting him to cut ties with them permanently.
Yeah, I agree with that, 100%. Guys, we're going to leave it there for Act 2. We'll be back talking Liverpool and City in Act 3. See you soon. Hello everybody, welcome back to Act 3. We're here discussing a monumental game in the Premier League calendar. It is City versus Liverpool, the highlight package, a massive game, arguably the biggest game in English football, a new rivalry as well. So how are you feeling about this one?
I'm very much hoping that I get to write about the football and not official statements from clubs, to be honest.
I thought you were going to say another light show.
No problem with the light show, although at 12:30 it would be an issue. Although, we'd probably do it in this light. They've been the two best footballing teams for the last 5-6 years, and they've produced some incredible games. Obviously hampered by it being a 12:30 kickoff. It's for television, and because clubs sign up to these lucrative deals, that means the broadcasters can turn around and say, yeah, you play when we want. And I think Liverpool have had more 12:30s after international breaks than like any other team by a long way, and also have regularly had a contingent of South Americans who are almost always travelling the furthest. So particularly tough on Liverpool, but tough on City as well this time. So that may not help the standard of football, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But you would expect, a really good game from the two teams that I think will probably end up as the top two.
Yeah, it feels like there'll probably be a lot of focus as well on Everton's points deduction, because obviously that transfers to City, and then Liverpool should be awarded some of those titles. You're expecting some of the broadcasting to be featured around that, aren't you?
Yeah, quite possibly, yeah. But yeah, like I say, just sort of hope that the game passes without incident in the stands, because too many games between these two in recent years have been spoiled by the actions of, you know, both sets of supporters, really.
Do you see them as sort of City's, obviously Manchester United being the main rivals, but are they firmly in second now, Liverpool?
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, Guardiola was asked maybe before the United game, sort of, you know, United your biggest rivals or Liverpool, and he was like, well, Liverpool, because United haven't challenged us at all while I've been here, basically. And he
knows what he's doing, doesn't he?
Well, but also it's kind of a different mindset, you know, of who your biggest threat is, and the team that has always given Guardiola the most headaches has been Liverpool, and the team that, you know, City have pushed against and sort of improved to stay ahead of is Liverpool, and Liverpool and Klopp would say the same for City. And, you know, they're in a similar position where Everton are their big rivals, and they've got United as well. But if you're asking over the last 6 years, which team have they sort of been most desperate to beat, it would probably be City. And, you know, if they could change one game from the last 6 years or whatever, it'd likely be that 2-1 win for City at the Etihad in 2019 that one win that meant that stopped Liverpool from being titles, stopped them from getting 100 points, and stopped them from being unbeaten for the season. I think it was enormous. When Liverpool have climbed the heights, City have been there with them, and the same going the other way. So it's been a great rivalry. And, you know, there has been a bit of edge to it, which has been nice at times as well. And it looks like it will continue this season.
Yeah, they look good, don't they? It's almost like they've, obviously, that blistering front three of Salah, Firmino and Mane, who cause City so many problems at their pomp. They've kind of evolved, really, haven't they? And like Nunes is in there, and obviously you've got Cody Gakpo, got Luis Diaz, who's now back. And Mo Salah, obviously, doesn't seem like he's slowing down whatsoever. They pose massive threats, don't they, Liverpool?
Yeah, and, you know, one of the sort of weaknesses that became more obvious in the Liverpool team was Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back. You know, the space that you could get in behind him. And Alexander-Arnold and Klopp have looked at what Man City have done with John Stones and said, yeah, we could do that. And have evolved and are a better team for it. And, you know, there are still questions about Liverpool defensively, but then you're talking about a City team that have just conceded 4 goals. So, you know, they're not immune from it either, and haven't kept as many clean sheets as they should have done this season. So it's two teams that are evolving, and that kind of shows why, you know, they're two of the best run clubs in the league. And you talk about Liverpool replacing their front line. It's so hard to do, and City so hard to replace Silva and Aguero and company and Toure, and you don't always get everything right. But you look at Liverpool, and it seemed like last season they missed Sadio Mane a lot, but then Mane wasn't amazing at Bayern. And if you're talking about replacing Mane and Firmino with kind of Nunes and, like I say, Jota and Gakpo and Diaz, like, they all look really good players. And so it's credit to Klopp and Liverpool for bringing them in.
Yeah, 100%. I wanted to just, unusually at the end, we do normally obviously preview the game coming up, but I did want to just link back to transfer chat just for a second. And a man who, you know, I watch quite keenly. I watch quite a bit of Bundesliga football, and who's really fostered an excellent relationship at the minute with Harry Kane. Leroy Sane. There's been discussions, rumours, of him potentially coming back to Manchester City. Now, I'm not going to say is he or isn't he, Si. What I am going to say, and what I'm going to ask is, would you have him back at Manchester City, or has that ship sailed?
Yeah, it's a very interesting one, isn't it? Because, like, it's a transfer that would get every City fan
He's
excited.
performing so well as well.
He is
So,
but every City fan loves him, and they love the sort of relationship he's had with the supporters and the performances that he gave for the club. It is quite a while since he left though, and City have changed a lot since he left, and he's changed a lot. Sort of, it's almost like Jeremy Doku has reopened the door for kind of a Leroy Sane to come in, because City had moved away from that, and Doku has come back in for it. I think with Sane, obviously City have got to their position in world football by making intelligent signings that aren't kind of necessarily the obvious ones. So there's every chance that Sane could be that, but I would always go back to I would be cautious about Bayern Munich or Real Madrid selling you any player, because it always seems like a great deal because you're getting a Bayern player or you're getting a Real Madrid player, and it always tends to end out working best for Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. I'm thinking like United in the last 10 years have signed Varane, but you talk about Varane, like Casemiro. How good was Casemiro last season? That's why he's on a 5-year deal. How bad has Casemiro been this year? Why is he on a 5-year? Why did we pay Real Madrid? Schweinsteiger at Bayern is another one, and all these players. You look at the giants in world football, and they don't tend to sell you a player unless they want to. Maybe Lewandowski going to Barcelona was kind of the exception, but that was more a contractual thing and something that Bayern will be well aware of, given that they sort of tend to snap up all of Dortmund's best talents on free transfers. But City are a bit different, because they say if you want to leave, you leave with a big offer. But yeah, as good as it would be to see Sane back in a City shirt, you sort of think, why are Bayern?
Nostalgia as well all the time, isn't it? But as not only that, but why are Bayern willing to sell, and Real Madrid, obviously, like you just spoken about, but the money as well. It's not going to be cheap for Bayern's best player.
Yeah.
Well, arguably best player. The other fella's doing all right, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. But City are because they're so well run, they sort of they will have their ideas in place for next season, but also be able to be flexible enough to sort of work around opportunities. And we saw this summer was kind of a bit more. They were a bit more reactive in the market than they normally are, and the jury is still out on a fair bit of it, but it looks fairly promising. So I think that you can trust that City will make the right decision.
And before we end, can I get a Liverpool prediction, please?
I think it'll be 3-1 to City. City do very, very well at the Etihad, as well at the Etihad as they do badly at Anfield.
Well, I think it is a bad thing doing poorly at Anfield, but I can't think of many clubs who've got a good track record there. So it's a terrible ground to go. And similarly to what City is now. So you've got 3-1 City. I'm going to stick with fours again. I'm going to go 4-2. It's going to be a blockbuster sign. You're going to be there to enjoy it. But we're going to leave it there. Thanks, Si, so much for joining me, mate. Really appreciate it. A poignant episode of the Talking City podcast, everyone. Really appreciate you stopping by for this. We'll make sure you go and follow us on YouTube. Leave us a like. Make sure you subscribe. All the good stuff. Leave us a 5-star rating on all of your favourite podcast providers. And from myself and Si, we will see you in a bit. Cheers.